It's 1985. British truck makers are dying. Drivers refuse British engines. Fleet operators abandon decades of loyalty. One American company revealed what British manufacturers spent years hiding. Their engines were fundamentally flawed. This was not supposed to happen. British engines once powered the world. The story starts 25 years earlier. In 1960, British lorry engines ruled their home market. Gardner, AEC, Leyland, names synonymous with reliability, names trusted worldwide. Gardner engines powered the empire, the 6LX, legendary for lasting forever. Fleet operators swore by them, low revving, economical, virtually unbreakable. The Gardner 6LX, launched in the late 1950s with 150 horsepower, warranty claims for terminal failure were virtually unheard of. AEC built the AV760 series, 12.5 litres, power ranging from 180 to 260 horsepower, powering London's buses and Britain's heavy haulage. Leyland had the 680 series, another workhorse across their truck and bus ranges. British manufacturers owned their market. E, R, F, Foden, Atkinson, all offered Gardner engines as standard. Cheap to buy, cheap to run, dependable. Foreign competition remained tiny. Volvo and Scania had minimal UK presence. British operators stayed loyal. This confidence bred complacency. The 1960s brought change. Motorway construction accelerated. Maximum weights increased. European haulage opened up. British trucks needed more power. But there was a problem. British engines could not deliver. Hugh Gardner refused to embrace turbocharging. He prevented experiments with turbos until the day he retired, traditions over progress. The 6LX developed under 200 horsepower. Meanwhile, American Cummins offered 250 horsepower and beyond. British hauliers running to Europe faced embarrassment. A typical English truck, at 32 tons gross, had maybe 180 horsepower from a lumbering non-turbo Gardner diesel. The Volvo F88 gave even base models 265 horsepower. Options went to 320. British trucks were simply not up to the job, underpowered, slow, unable to compete on European routes. British manufacturers saw the power problem. Their solution created catastrophe. Leyland developed the 500 series engine, fixed cylinder head design, ratings from 200 to 260 horsepower. On paper, the 500 looked impressive, but the engine was grossly underdeveloped, manufactured badly, a strategic disaster. Senior British Leyland management seemed happy making customers do development work, a trend that continued throughout the 1970s. The 500 quickly became known as troublesome and expensive to repair. The fixed head idea meant getting to valves required specialist tools and separating the cylinder block. National Bus Company fleet engineers despised the 500. They yearned for engines like the Gardner 6LX. UK hauliers, fed up with Leyland, bought into other brands. They wanted Cummins or Rolls-Royce engines. The 500 died quietly. Customer loyalty was damaged beyond repair. Meanwhile, at AEC Southall, another disaster brewed. AEC had been working on a V8 diesel since 1962. 12-litre capacity, 250 horsepower in naturally aspirated form. The engine was proving problematic. AEC held back from production. They battled serious shortcomings. Then British Leyland formed in 1968. The Leyland men visited AEC. They saw the V8. They wanted it in production immediately. Strong protests came from Southall engine designers. British Leyland had none of it. The engine was pressed into production. The AEC Mandator V8 launched. Drivers loved them. Operators much less so. Faults appeared right away. Overheating was common. If not spotted quickly, the top piston ring would fail. The piston would deform and pick up on the cylinder liner. All components rendered as scrap. The V8 was impressive, yet mortally underdeveloped. The V8 was impressive, yet mortally underdeveloped. Another British engine disaster. While British manufacturers destroyed their own reputations, an American company was building one. Cummins Engine Company, founded 1919 in Columbus, Indiana, by Plessy Lyle Cummins and banker William Glanton Irwin. The company pioneered diesel technology developed by Rudolph Diesel, initially found success in marine engines before developing automotive engines. In 1933, Cummins launched the H-type engine, powerful and suited to transportation needs. This engine became their most successful line. In 1940, Cummins offered a 100,000-mile warranty, a precedent in the engine industry. Nobody else would guarantee that kind of durability. Post-World War II, Cummins engines gained worldwide reputation: reliable, durable, economical. The N-series engines became industry leaders during America's post-war road-building boom. More than half the heavy-duty truck market in America used Cummins engines from 1952 to 1959. In 1956, Cummins opened their first manufacturing facility outside the United States, Shotts, Scotland, servicing nearby construction equipment plants. In 1965, another UK plant opened in Darlington, England, followed in the 1970s by a facility in Daventry for K-series engines. Cummins was establishing serious British presence, building engines locally, creating jobs, investing long-term. British truck makers could order Cummins engines at a hefty cost initially, and back then, Cummins had an uncertain reputation in Britain. That was about to change. British engine makers had a fundamental problem. They built engines for accountants, not drivers, not operators who needed to get work done. Gardner built for longevity and fuel economy, engines that lasted forever. The 500 and V8 disasters proved they couldn't engineer high-performance reliability. The fatal flaw was simple. British manufacturers believed low purchase price mattered most. Build cheap, sell cheap. Hope reliability covered the shortfall. Cummins approached it differently. Build the best engine possible. Price it fairly. Back it with warranty. Support it with service. When British engines failed catastrophically, fleet operators had to make choices: stick with British and hope, or try the American alternative. The Leyland Marathon launched in 1973, available with the turbocharged TL12 engine derived from AEC's AV760. Also offered Rolls-Royce Eagle at 220 horsepower and the Cummins E14 at 335 horsepower. That Cummins option changed everything. The TL12 and fuller gearbox combination was effective, one of the best drivelines of the mid-1970s. Marathons had reputation for low running costs, but operators who chose the Cummins E14 found something remarkable: power and reliability, performance and durability. By the late 1970s, the void left by Gardner's refusal to modernize and British Leyland's engine disasters was filled. Cummins, Rolls-Royce, who later became Verity Perkins, but Cummins became the choice. Their reputation solidified. In 1982, Cummins introduced a game-changer: the L10 10-litre displacement, inline 6-cylinder. Designed to fill the gap between smaller B-series and larger K-series engines, available in vertical form for trucks or horizontal form for buses. The L10 was Cummins' first competitive offering in the British bus market. Earlier engines had been too large and heavy. Power ratings ranged from 250 to 350 horsepower, far exceeding what British engines offered. In 1986, Cummins invested over £13.5 million refitting the Darlington plant. Production began on the all-new B-series engine, 3.9 and 5.9 litre capacities. The Leyland road train launched in 1980. Engine options included the AEC-based TL12, also Rolls-Royce Eagle at 265 and 300 horsepower, and Cummins 290 L10 and the 14-litre 350. Most large fleet buyers chose Rolls-Royce initially, but the Cummins L10 plus Eaton twin-split transmission combo became the driveline choice as the 1980s progressed. By then, it offered up to 325 horsepower. For operators requiring even more, a Cummins NTE Series 14-litre gave 350 horsepower and colossal torque. ERF, based in Sandbach, had a different business model than Foden. ERF bought virtually everything in: engines from Gardner, Perkins, Rolls-Royce, Cummins, gearboxes and axles from Eaton, GKN, Rockwell. This meant hauliers could choose parts to suit their needs. When ERF launched their EC range in 1993, the most popular model by far was the EC 10325, featuring the renowned 2.4 valve Cummins L10 engine with Eaton twin-split transmission. This driveline was described as a true driver's specification, in the right hands, unbeatable for economy or reliability. It was often said the driver would be broken before he broke the gearbox. Independent tests showed the Cummins-powered ERF achieving 8.5 miles per gallon, better than competitors, combined with one of the quickest times over test routes. British manufacturers had completely surrendered. Their own engines were gone, replaced by American power. Gardner continued through the 1980s, but their days were numbered. The 6LX remained popular for British bus buyers right through to the early 1990s. But Leyland Bus entered a preferential purchase agreement with Cummins. So did Dennis. Forthcoming Euro 1 emission criteria sealed Gardner's fate. Engine production of the 6LX ceased in 1992 after a run of almost 100,000 units. Years of blinkered management killed Gardner, nothing else. By the time any real future prospects could be had, there was no market available. Gardner had refused to change with the times. Hugh Gardner's conservative approach prevented turbocharging experiments. When he finally retired and turbocharged versions appeared, it was too late. AEC's engine production ended with the Southall factory closure in 1979. Their V8 disaster and absorption into British Leyland finished them. Leyland's own engine designs faded. The TL12 dropped from production early. The 500 was already dead. British Leyland had to rely entirely on bought-in engines. Rolls-Royce Eagle engines survived into the 1990s, but even Rolls-Royce diesel eventually sold to Perkins. By the mid-1990s, no major British heavy truck engine manufacturer remained. Gardner gone, AEC gone, Leyland engines gone, Cummins thrived. Their Darlington plant still produces engines today. The B series became legendary. The Leyland evolved into the M11, then ISM, then current ISL. The fatal flaw was not lack of engineering skill. Britain had brilliant engineers. The flaw was management philosophy. British manufacturers built for yesterday. They believed fuel economy and longevity alone would keep customers loyal. They ignored power demands, ignored driver comfort, ignored competition. When they finally tried to compete on power, they rushed development. The 500 series, the AEC V8, both disasters that destroyed customer confidence. Today in 2026, no British heavy truck engine manufacturer exists. Cummins Darlington still operates, still builds engines, still powers trucks worldwide. The B series they developed became the most produced light commercial diesel ever made, powering everything from delivery vans to buses to construction equipment. British truck manufacturers that survive, like Leyland Trucks, build for DAF, using PACCAR engines, or offering Cummins as options. The irony is complete. American Cummins proved British engines were flawed, then filled the gap British manufacturers created through incompetence and complacency. British manufacturers had every advantage: home market, loyal customers, engineering heritage, manufacturing capability. They lost it all because they could not deliver what the market needed: power with reliability, performance with durability. Cummins could, Cummins did, Cummins won. That is how American engines exposed the fatal flaw in British lorries. Not through competition, through competence. British manufacturers built engines for accountants who counted pennies. Cummins built engines for operators who needed to move freight. The market chose accordingly. The market always does. The fatal flaw was not in British engineering. It was in British management's understanding of what customers actually needed. By the time they learned that lesson, it was too late. The customers had already left. For American power, they could depend on.